Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another Media Matters for Anfield Index. Bob Geldof and the Boomtown Rats said, I don't like Mondays. However, the Reds didn't play, and I get that. Storm Darragh may have put a dent in your weekend, but the other teams may just have helped it. Join me as ever, is the renowned and the respected David Lynch. Now, David, I know you've got a busy day ahead because you've got this open traded at midday, and there's a press conference with Slot and a player at 6:30, isn't it? It's going to be a busy day for you.
Yeah, so straight back into it, really, which just kind of shows you as well, off the back of kind of if Liverpool had played on Saturday, just how busy this period is. You know, that would have been, third game in kind of 6 days, and then straight back into this for a Tuesday game. It would have been really, really tough. So it's kind of landed quite nicely for them, although, still kind of as busy as ever for us.
Yeah, it is a weird one, and we'll get right into it because, as everyone knows, Storm Darragh did claim the Merseyside derby. I think we all sort of suspected around Friday it wasn't going to go ahead. We knew when Aintree races got pulled and all the events in Liverpool it wasn't going to. So the downside is, I know people will say, lost and it feels a bit different. I get all that. But when you stack it up, honestly, David, and I sort of discussed this on Saturday with a few people, the positives of having this postponed stack up big time, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's just a lot of reasons to think that this has kind of worked in Liverpool's favour, really. And I think, the first of those is, if the conditions had been just slightly less windy, then Liverpool probably would have had to go ahead and play the game. And you just think that particular game, Everton away, where they will kind of want to spoil the game and want set pieces and long balls, that would have been an absolute nightmare. And I think we've seen all over the weekend, actually, some of the games that have been played have kind of been levelled out. The team that you would think were better has not been able to kind of show that as well because of the conditions. So getting it called off for that is a bit of a bonus as a starting point. But then you also throw in the fact that Liverpool have been on this crazy run recently to have Real Madrid, Manchester City, then Newcastle away, which was a really tough one, and then straight into a Merseyside derby away from home. Really, really tricky run. And the players were starting to look a little bit leggy as well at Newcastle, I thought. And then also on top of that, all the injuries that they've got at the moment, like 5 or 6 players out who missed it. And so, I think it's kind of, and then obviously they've not even mentioned the McAllister suspension. So there's about 15 different reasons why it kind of isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, in terms of whether it'll be better for Liverpool, we'll have to see where it lands in the end. But I think with the information we've got available at the moment, this being off was not the worst thing in the world, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about the players that are out, and everyone knows the recent injuries to Konate, Bradley, Tsimikas. But people also forget there would have been realistically 4 first-teamers missing in terms of Alisson in goal, Ibu at the back. As you said, McAllister would have been off. Jota hopefully be back naturally and by the time this returns. I mean, we've talked about McAllister before and he has looked a bit tired. We feel like he's been carrying that injury. He's actually going to get a real, I'm not saying he's going for 2 weeks in Fuerteventura, but he's getting a really good rest now for us, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's one of those players you kind of think maybe needed it as well. I think he's one who's kind of looked leggy at times this season, not necessarily in the Newcastle game where I thought Gravenberch was kind of the one who most struggled in that regard. But I think generally over the season, McAllister's played a lot of football. He gets involved in a lot of challenges. He's always going over to Argentina. So him having a bit of time off is not the worst. And missing the Merseyside derby, I think he would have been a big miss in that game where you need someone who's combative but has got that composure. Obviously, Fulham coming up is a tough game, but I don't think him missing that is as bad. I think you can cover up a lot of things when you're at home and kind of get away with certain things, and missing a key player like that. It's maybe better to be missing him in a home game than an away game, although Fulham is tough enough. So, yeah, I don't think it's the worst thing that he gets that game off. He obviously gets this midweek one off as well. That was always in the calendar. So, yeah, it's nice to see him get that. And I think he'll come back after that week off and be fresh and ready to kind of help Liverpool out. So that it's, again, one of those, not the worst thing in the world that's happened.
Yeah, no doubts. And Slot did mention on Friday, just gone, or was the press conference redundant now? But are we hoping at 12 o'clock when you're at open training Are we really, fingers crossed, we're going to see Alisson, Jota, Chiesa on the pitch with the rest of them, maybe even travelling? Is that a realistic hope, do you think?
Yeah, I'd be disappointed if not. I mean, I know Chiesa wasn't in the training pictures that came out on Friday, but I spoke to someone about that, and there was still the expectation he would be involved against Girona. It was described as kind of he's incredibly close. So I think he's one I know should be involved in this unless he's had one of those kind of little minor setbacks. And then the way the manager spoke about Alisson and Jota, and we know Alisson's been doing bits and bobs. Jota has as well. Has been out on the grass. You'd like to think that they would be involved as well. And I think this game's a real opportunity to use them as well, just to get some minutes in them. It's not an absolute must win. It's one of the kind of fixtures Liverpool have had recently. I know Girona are a very good team, by the way, but like I say, you've been playing City, Newcastle, Real Madrid recently. It's not of that ilk, is it? So hopefully get minutes in them and get them back. And then, we say about the Merseyside derby being rescheduled. It's kind of, there could be 3 players back in the squad who weren't in the squad for that game. So that's massive. So yeah, the hope is that all 3, we will see them at open training and they'll be in the travelling party. Yeah.
Which would be a massive boost across the board. And the last one for this, because we're trying not to be too greedy and everything be absolutely positive, because it never works that way in the football world. But even the option to rescheduling, I mean, there's different ones in there. People have suggested even New Year's Day is a possibility. I think the police would sort of shoot that down straight away, in all honesty, from what they've got on the docket, knowing how Liverpool goes on that day. But February, there's a couple of dates as well that wouldn't be too bad for us, would they?
Yeah, so I've kind of, when I looked at this, obviously, one, you've got to factor in as well as if Liverpool don't go through in the League Cup. But I've got to be honest, the way Southampton are playing, and even if Liverpool rotate, which they will, you still fancy Liverpool to get through. So I'm not kind of in my head thinking about that as an option, but it could happen. It wouldn't be the hugest shock you've ever seen if a rotated side gets beat. So that is an option when the League Cup dates open up. But if not, and Liverpool do go through, there is that couple of February dates where you would imagine they'll get through in the top 8 in the Champions League. They only need 1 point to get to 16, which would give them, I think, a 98% chance of going through. So they're very, very close. And if they win this Girona game, it's sealed, it's done. So the dates are kind of February 11th, 12th, or February 18th, 19th. So those midweeks there. And the first of those, if Liverpool could pick it, I think they probably go for that, because they've got an FA Cup game prior to it and then Wolves at home after it. So to just drop it in there would be, I think, from their perspective, absolutely perfect. The next one's a little bit tougher. Obviously, Wolves at home would still be the weekend game. And then the one that follows is City away. So that makes it a touch more difficult. And so I think they'd want the first week of the 2. The one potential spanner in the works there is kind of the fact that TNT have the rights to this game, and they also have the rights to the Champions League playoffs, which is they would land in those weeks, and how that kind of works out. Maybe would you have to push it to a Thursday game or something like that? We'll kind of have to see. But those weeks look pretty handy if Liverpool don't go out of the League Cup. So, hopefully it kind of gets dropped in the first one of those.
Yeah, we're hoping for that. The football fates never work this way, but there's a couple of dates there that will suit us very well. So we'll see what happens with that. This story, David, we're going to ask you about this. This is literally, aside from on the pitch matters, this is what's created off the field, hasn't it, realistically? The Mo Salah stories. And there's been a couple, realistically, for people who've not seen them. The Mirror had on sort of Saturday night that most that anywhere as praying. However, this is probably the big story. The Ornstein bomb drops late last night. Liverpool make an opening contract offer to Mo Salah. Doesn't mean, as it says, agreement's close or done, but it means there's contract now on the table for all 3. This one, being honest, David, does this have the feeling of the players had almost their side of the story out, and very much the pressure was ratcheting up against almost that hierarchy, the people, Hughes, Edwards, whoever you want to name? Does this feel in almost PR terms like the hierarchy strikes back, almost like a Star Wars reference? Does it feel like we're in this game now, but it's moving at least?
Yeah, I don't necessarily I wouldn't say necessarily this is kind of Liverpool briefing this, and I can kind of shoot that down. You know, they're not kind of trying to put that out there. I don't think. I think this, you know, the way David Ornstein gets his stories from kind of all over the place. So, and as I say, Liverpool aren't necessarily briefing this one. They're not putting that out there. But obviously, it's clearly true. I mean, he's absolutely flawless as a reporter, so no question about that. But I think what it just shows us is that there's progress being made, and you know, we've long been talking about the fact that that would happen, and that the talks are ongoing, and you know, we're just not hearing an awful lot about it. And it's obviously got to a point where they feel that they can make this offer. And the key now is just kind of ironing out those details and getting it over the line. But it's, you know, it's still going to be slow progress from here. I don't think this means that we're absolutely right there where he's going to sign this first contract offer. That probably won't work like that. But it shows that we're moving somewhere, and you know, getting a little bit kind of tired of this, you know, every beat of this story that we have to be across it kind of thing, because I just think, I don't know, we only get half of each side of the story, and we only get half little bits and nuggets, and we don't know, you know, maybe Liverpool have made a completely derisory offer here, or maybe, you know, maybe they've offered something that would blow your socks off, or, you know, and Mo had already kind of made that point, hadn't he? They hadn't made me an offer, but again, that was him kind of hiding part of the story, which is that he clearly wants a pay rise, and also that, you know, there are talks ongoing anyway with an idea that they would get to an offer. So it's all a bit of kind of nonsense and a bit of a dance, really. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think that the one thing we can take away from it is that, you know, some progress is being made now. All three players have got contract offers. They might not be ones that get accepted, but we're moving towards that area, and hopefully we can get there. So, yeah, I don't think it's bad news. I'll say that.
Yeah, and fair play to Red Armchair supporter there. Time to stop crying to the media and sign up. And it does kind of have that feeling now that, I'm being honest, I feel that way. There's a lot of talking, stories, briefing, however you want to describe it. Is there a concern for you a little bit? And I'm not saying it's a big one. It's not a major worry for me. But if this keeps going and we get a briefing almost every week, and I know it fuels sort of the columns and us talking about it, but it can derail if we're still doing this sort of late into Feb or in the season, can't it? A little bit. There is that potential.
I'm not particularly worried about that, because I don't think it's derailed them up to this point. And we've heard so many stories coming from Salah's side about this, you know, both him and, you know, briefed and things like that. You know, the club aren't getting involved in briefings. Like I say, that's not how David Ornstein sourced this story. I can categorically say that. The club aren't getting involved in that kind of PR war, so it's not coming from their side. But I don't fear it derailing things. Like I say, my thing is, I don't think about it that often. I don't worry about it. You know, these things take time, and it was always locked in. Once, you know, we got to the point 12 months ago that they hadn't signed the contract, and there was going to be all this change at Liverpool coming into this summer. It got locked in that it was going to be late. So we just have to accept that. That is already done. It was done months ago that it was going to get to this point, basically. It was going to take this amount of time. So there's nothing we can do about that. My advice to people would just be not worry about it, not take every story as this or that, or that it's that, you know, that it's huge, or, you know, that it's a massive development. You know, we're just, what we're witnessing and what this is part of is just this really boring process of negotiation that's going on behind the scenes that takes time. It's nothing really more than that, and there's nothing to read into whether he'll stay or go, really, from the fact he's been made that offer. The only thing we know is that Liverpool want to make him an offer, but I could have told you that months ago. We've said that talks are ongoing, that Liverpool want to keep him, said the same with Van Dijk, said the same about Trent. You know, essentially this isn't new stuff, so it doesn't tell us anything outside of that, and it's just another, you know, it's a bit of progress in the story, but as I say, for me, not hugely interesting or something we have to get kind of overwhelmed about. And I don't think the players are getting distracted by it. And, you know, it's up to fans whether they want to get distracted by it. But my advice would be to not do.
Yeah, I got a feeling that some may fall on deaf ears, but we'll have to see how that builds this season. And it is right, because naturally we've talked about contracts. I mean, we are so close now to various sort of windows, stories leaking. So there's a few I just wanted to ask you about. A few that were doing the rounds yesterday. I don't know if this is a manifestation signing, because I know a lot of people quite rightly he's a good player, João Pedro, the 23-year-old Brazilian striker at Brighton. Quite a few stories that Liverpool are interested in him, and you could understand why if that is the case. Have you heard anything on this one at all, João Pedro?
No, not at all, and I wouldn't expect to be honest. There's nothing, absolutely nothing close on that, or kind of Liverpool even moving for him. Or that would be one that if it happened and they liked him, it'd be one that would happen in the summer and not before, and it would probably need someone to move on as well. So we are a long way from that one, and I've no doubt player with his kind of profile, 23 years old, got experience in the Premier League, scores goals, got some decent championship data behind him as well. Flexible because he can play centre forward, he can play attacking midfield. Yeah, no doubt they'd be taking a look at him and like him because he's a very good footballer, and he's really good age. But nothing even close for that one, and I think it would cost an awful lot as well. So there'd have to be a lot of things come together for that. But I'm sure they're keeping an eye on him. But anyone who suggests anything like that, Liverpool are absolutely dead set on buying him at this moment in time. That's not accurate.
Yeah, and you guarantee Brighton and Tony Bloom would not be looking to do us one single favour at all. Another name that's on the docket, and a few had this. There was interesting stories going round. The young Lannis, I think it's pronounced, Argentinian fullback, Julio Salah, that actually was a bit of a star for Argentina in their Olympics under Mascherano, a famous Liverpool face. A few stories at the weekend that actually it was close during the summer but broke down over agents' fees and that the deal didn't quite get done, but it may be a potential for resurrection. And we've talked left back a lot. Heard anything recently about Julio Salah at all?
Yes, it's interesting this because I asked about this over the summer and checked in with a couple of sources about whether there was anything in it, and it got knocked down fairly early in the summer. It got knocked down as not anything that they were looking to do. So that doesn't suggest to me that agent fees were the kind of block to it or any kind of issue there. I'm just not sure whether that's just kind of agent talk or whatever, but could be a player that they like, and I think left back will come onto the agenda in the summer. There's absolutely no question about that. And with a player like this who's in Argentina, maybe you do the deal in January and you kind of wait till the summer to absolutely get it over the line. So maybe someone they're interested in because again, he's profile wise kind of seems like someone they might be. But it got knocked down for me in the summer. So I don't think I'd be surprised if anything's imminent on that one. And it does just have a little hint of kind of agent talk as well.
Yeah, be interested, especially because Kirkes, Aïnouri have been mentioned as well, who are more Premier League established. So we'll have to see on that one. We've talked incomings, but this one, and I know you were there, I just want to play you a small snippet from the press conference that Arne Slot did ahead of the Merseyside derby, where he talked about his midfielders. And almost with this, I want to talk about the omissions. So just for everyone, let's play what Arne Slot said specifically.
McAllister suspended for this game. You're fortunate that the midfielders you've got now available have all had game time, so you've got options there to replace them.
That's the good thing. The downside to it is that I think that these players hardly make any fouls, but they're already. Ryan is also one card away from being suspended, so that is something for us to be aware of, how that is possible, because we hardly make any fouls. And McAllister won in Newcastle. You could argue if you saw all the decisions that we made afterwards, if it was so correct that he got a yellow for that. But during a season that players will be suspended, and it's always a moment where you feel like, we could have used him. But the good thing for us is we've got the main four midfielders that have played with Dom, Curtis, Ryan, and Maka. One of them is not available at the moment, so still 3 left, and Harvey Elliott is on his way back. So I think that line is not our main worry at the moment, but our main worry is, of course, I think at this moment, if you look at how close they're all.
Okay, so he talks about suspensions, David. He talks about injuries, and he name checks players. He literally names the main 4, which we know, and also Harvey Elliott to come back, as he puts it. He's building his fitness, as we know. If you're Endo and Tyler Morton's agents, Are you almost thinking like, look at that clip, guys? You're not really like in his thinking realistically. You should be looking for January possibly.
Yeah, but I don't think it's a surprise to either of them. I mean, I wrote the story over the summer that Endo wasn't in the manager's plans, and I think we've seen since that that's clearly obvious that is the case. He, I know he's featured in the League Cup, but he hasn't been anywhere near the Premier League except for kind of coming on for the final 5 minutes or so. Same with Tyler Morton. We've only seen him in the League Cup, so they've known for a while that they weren't going to be anywhere near it. And with Morton, he saw that move away fall through, but I absolutely expect they will revisit the opportunity to go and move on in January. I think that 100% is something that we're looking to do if the interest is there and they can get it over the line. And with Endo, the big question around him is, I know over the summer he wanted to stay, he wanted to fight for his place. But the huge question going into January is, has anything changed around that? Do you want to still stay to the end of the season, maybe see where you're up to, see if the opportunities come around because of injuries or whatever, and see what you can do, and then make your move? Or have you had enough already and you're ready to move on in January? That's the question. We don't know the inside of Endo's mind on that one, but it's been obvious since August that neither was in his plans, and he's told them both that, and he's shown that with everything he's done. So not a huge shock to them, I guess.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if there is any suitors, like you said, in January, and B, if they do come in, will Liverpool let even move without a replacement or without another squad member coming in? Even if Arne Slot doesn't see them in the plans, it will be an interesting one. And the final bit, because we are talking about sort of contracts, transfers, did want to talk about a few loan players, because Liverpool have got a number of youngsters on loan, no two ways about it. But the one who seems to be really tearing up trees, and maybe I'm doing it wrong by saying one, because Owen Beck seems to be doing very well for Blackburn at the same time by all accords, but Ben Doak especially seems to be doing very well in the Championship. Not started much at Middlesbrough, but now he is, and getting goals or goal, assist, doing well for Scotland. I suppose in regards to what you're hearing from the club, is the hope that Doak, possibly Beck, could be in that first team picture next season at all?
I'm a little sceptical on Doak, to be honest. I think he would have absolutely had to really tear it up this season to get in the mix. And I've seen him a few times. He's playing pretty well, and I watched him against Burnley actually on Friday and thought he was impressive. But it's such a long way away from being that to being Liverpool's sixth choice attacker. So for example, if a spot is going to open up in Liverpool's attack this summer, it might be because they sell Darwin Núñez. They aren't going to replace Darwin Núñez with Ben Doak. He's just not at that, and I know Núñez has got issues, but it's going to be someone who's more of the level of the kind of first choice six that they've got in that collection. It's going to be someone who's that experienced and ready, and I just don't think Doak's anywhere near that. And I think that's why there was that willingness there to sell him over the summer, because they can't see that spot opening up. And you've got to be, for a young attacker coming through, you've got to be basically a prodigy to get anywhere near it. And, he's very, very good. He's very talented. He's going to have a good career. I've no doubt about that. And great to see him doing well. But I just don't think he's that level to even be Liverpool's sixth choice attacker. And if he's not that, he's not getting minutes, he's not developing. So I think next summer will come around and there's every chance of a Ben Doak permanent exit. I think where Owen Beck is slightly different is that left back is an area that they will need and they will be looking at coming into next summer. And the huge question will be, okay, is he ready to do it? And there's a chance he is, because, you look at Conor Bradley, tore it up in League One, came back, and absolutely, if he had to start a season at right back for Liverpool, if he didn't have Trent, you wouldn't be concerned about that. He's good enough to do that. So the judgment is Owen Beck ready to do that on the left-hand side? And I hear he's doing really well. I haven't watched a lot of Blackburn at all, so not seen an awful lot. But that's a judgment, obviously, for Richard Hughes to make and Arne Slot as well, in terms of whether he's ready. But I think Owen Beck maybe has a chance if he is, and that's their judgment. Ben Doak, I struggle to see it, to be honest.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see if they even get an opportunity. I know we're jumping ahead to next summer, but at least if they're doing well in the Championship, if Liverpool do move them on, there are potential suitors there. So we'll see what builds. And then I suppose the final thing, it's as much as the cancelled, the games come thick and fast, don't they? Girona Don't get caught out by this, people. It is 5:45 tomorrow night. It is not the standard 8 o'clock kickoff. So just in case you're planning that late after work. But then the games still come thick and fast. As you said, it's Fulham at the weekend and then it's Southampton in the Carabao Cup. With Everton, the derby being postponed, is there a bit of you thinking that actually this may change Slot's plans a little bit, i.e. it may be a stronger team in Girona than he'd first thought about?
Yeah, I think he would have seen Girona as a kind of an opportunity to rotate a little, not kind of League Cup levels of changing things up, but I think he would have seen it as almost that he had to as well, because, as I say, it would have been that crazy run that Liverpool had been on, then a Tuesday game. It's an awful lot, whereas now he'll be thinking, okay, well, we want to keep players in rhythm as well, and that's important. So they've already had a game off. Maybe we can get them back in for this game. So I think it's an opportunity to go stronger. And also, it's a bonus really, because if Liverpool go strong in this and they win it, they know they're through in the top 8. They've condensed the Champions League to 6 games this season, which is absolutely amazing, really. And those last 2 do not matter at all, and they can really sort of tweak things and change it up. So what a huge bonus that is. So I do think he's got the opportunity to go strong. I mean, there's still chances. So, if Alisson does make it, which we expect, could be straight back in. What a good way to kind of ease him back in. Can you get Chiesa minutes off the bench? Can you get Jota minutes off the bench? Can Harvey Elliott, even start this one? Maybe that would be fantastic to get him back in the mix. But otherwise, don't necessarily have to make a load of changes and make it difficult for yourself. So that's, it's worked out really, really nicely, I think.
Yeah, no, and I was going to ask you, because we're jumping ahead a bit here, but if we're going quite strong, does it feel like strong against Girona, strongest against Fulham, and then mass rotation in that Carabao, as in like Chiesa starting potentially, Quansah coming in, all those, even Endo, Elliott, Morton getting minutes? Is that what you're leaning towards for this week?
That's what I would like to see, yeah. I don't want to see anyone kind of considered first choice anywhere near that Southampton game, to be honest, except the ones that you maybe have to because of limited options. It's just not Liverpool's priority this season. And I think they can name a really scratch side and still go to Southampton and win anyway. As difficult as that league game was, I think Southampton themselves will probably make changes. So, and I just think even if they did go out, I just don't think it's the worst thing in the world. Liverpool have got bigger priorities this season, and you can't always write off the opportunity to win a trophy, but when you're in the position Liverpool are in the Premier League at the moment, it would just be madness to go strong in this and pick up potentially any more injuries or just add to the level of fatigue. I don't want to see Ryan Gravenberch anywhere near this. No. If you can avoid playing Virgil van Dijk, fantastic. Same with Mo Salah. They're the 3 most used players this season, so don't want to see them anywhere near it. And the squad's big enough to make big changes. So, really, really hope there's full rotation there. And I think we saw, he did it for the Brighton game, didn't he? So he's not, even if it's a kind of scarier game than this, he will make those changes because he knows that this isn't as important. So I do hope we see those changes. And I think we will. Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Just another reason why this postponement is probably a bit of a positive for Liverpool, however it's dressed up. And I just want to go back one, because a good comment came up there, and I hadn't even thought about these 2 players. Because the question there, what are the chances that James McConnell and Jayden Danns will be loaned out? Because it felt like they were going to be loaned out in the summer, but obviously injuries circumvented that. Do you think there will be any temptation? Because people even say, could Danns come into the forward line, or do you think you expect them to move out on loan?
Yeah, I expect both to go. Yeah, I think with McConnell, definitely the plan was to loan him out in the summer, and then he got an ankle injury, so he's back fit now. He's back in training, so I think they'll have a look at that again. Absolutely, I expect him to go out if the right opportunity's there. And similarly with Jayden Danns, it wasn't guaranteed that when he came back into full fitness that he would go out on loan, so that wasn't a plan that was set into place when they kind of started at the start of the season and he got that injury. But he's been back in training a while, and again, I just think they will feel that is an opportunity to get him out there and playing football, and that will be good for him. So I would like to see Jayden Danns go, but certainly James McConnell will go, and Jayden Danns, it's all about what interest is there and if it's the right move again.
Yeah, because it was interesting, because we saw a lot of links with Plymouth, I think it was, wasn't it, when Wayne Rooney during the summer. So interesting, a club like that resurrects it. But yeah, a lot of decisions still to be made in January. But as much as we didn't play, one thing I did want to talk about was wider football and all the other teams, because Saturday and largely Sunday worked out quite well for us. I mean, Saturday, we always like a day where United and City both don't win. The big headline, though, was realistically that Ineos sacking Dan Ashworth after 5 months, after going through the gardening leave, after backing him, backing Ten Hag. I mean, this is just music to our ears, this, isn't it? It's just the circus just continues down the East Lancs Road.
Yeah, I mean, your concern was, if you know, from a Liverpool supporter perspective, is that when Ineos came in and they were taking hold of football operations, you know, your concern was, okay, they're going to be serious now and things are going to change. And then, do you know what? I looked at the business they did last summer, and the keeping of Ten Hag, and just knew this is no different. And this just kind of adds to it, doesn't it? You know, just it's a clown show, really. And you know, the amount of money that they spent to get Dan Ashworth in, and the time that they waited on, they sack him 5 months later. It's just poor decisions being made again. And you know, that summer that they went through the summer just gone, again, they'll be kind of paying for that for a long time in terms of how poor the signings were. I do think Amorim is a smart appointment and a good one, but I still think, you know, he's going to get dragged down by how bad they are at transfers and the general mess in terms of how the club is run.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think this sacking Ashworth just kind of sums up where they are at the moment. And yeah, it doesn't look like it's going to get any better for them. And it's not even just actually the football operations. I mean, this whole shambles around the £66 tickets now as well. They're just a poorly run club in every aspect. The way they treat the women's team, it's just a shambles, basically. And I don't think they're going to turn it around anytime soon.
No, which we're not really looking for. So yeah, long may that continue. And City, I know you specifically said you ruled them out pretty much after we beat them the other weekend. I mean, a draw at Crystal Palace away, Rico Lewis's red card, which prompted a very, very strange post-match interview from Pep Guardiola as well. But with that, just the way the cracks are appearing in City, they're completely gone. They're not in this title race anymore, are they?
No chance. You know, I had a few people kind of push back on that when I suggested it after the Liverpool beat them, but the problems are just too big. They're not very good this season, and people have to get used to that. You know, they've got players who can win games, and you know, Liverpool go there not in the not too distant future, and that will still be a tough game. I mean, you got someone like Haaland on the pitch who can score from anything, and they've still got some quality in loads of positions. But the midfield is just soft, and it's got problems, and it's old, and they look slow, and they just don't look the same team in a lot of positions. Kyle Walker's absolutely gone, and there's just not a lot you can do about that. So they're going to be nowhere near the title. Everyone needs to stop even thinking about that. For City, they need to kind of refocus on getting in the top four as well, because it's going to be tight and competitive. So, you know, Pep needs to kind of find an answer to the problems he's got this season.
Yeah, and you look at even City in the Champions League, they've still got work to do to avoid a two-legged playoff as well, possibly as well. So yeah, there's a lot bigger concerns, I think, for Manchester City than a title race right now. And turned into yesterday, the other two rivals, if you want to call them that. We'll start with Arsenal, because it was almost joyous the way they thought they'd won it, and then VAR, which we're now starting to like for those reasons, robs them. But the one thing I really wanted to ask you about Arsenal and the evidence we're seeing this season, if you take away set pieces, the rest looks pretty average, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And again, this is kind of like, what I mean, they are capable of going on a run. We know this, and maybe it's going to happen at some point. But I don't get the panic about, you know, the possibility they had this weekend, wasn't it, to move within 4 points, because, you know, Liverpool had dropped points and then obviously get a game postponed. But I just think people need to kind of be just, you know, slightly less worried about how good they are and what the length of this run they could go on, because it's what they have to do now to get to 90 points is outrageous. So it's probably not going to happen. So, you know, and I'm not saying completely write Arsenal off, and you know, maybe there's every chance that they squeeze Liverpool, but I look at them this season, and again, they just look like a side who are not as good as they have been at the peak, and they need to be even better than that over the next 24 games, is it, to get 90 points. So they're really going to struggle to do it, because they are so reliant on set pieces. It's ridiculous. I mean, I watched that game yesterday, so this isn't just looking at the numbers or whatever, but well, no, the numbers perfectly tallied with what I saw, which was that they created 0.3 open play expected goals. Ridiculous. And that is particularly ridiculous because I tell you what, they are world class at squeezing teams in, pressing them, winning the ball back, absolutely choking the life out of the team. So they dominate possession, but they can't do anything with it. They cannot do anything with it because, I don't know, I've always kind of had question marks over Mikel Arteta's ability to coach and attack outside of probably the 22-23 season when they were very good going forward. But then, I think they were stodgy in parts last season, and that's what cost them. It cost them going out in the Champions League. It cost them in terms of the league when they went through a bad run. And this season, again, similarly, so reliant on set pieces to create opportunities. And again, they get the goal from one yesterday. I just have those question marks over Arteta. And I wonder if one of the things that's kind of cost him is that Martinelli was very, very good in that 22-23 season, and he hasn't been the same since. So then they become even more reliant on Odegaard, even more reliant on Saka. And if those two men don't somehow work it out for you, then you have to score off a set piece. And asking two men to sort it out for you constantly, it's not going to work. And then you are then becoming reliant on set pieces, and they are. So they've got big problems in attack, I think. And that's not to say they're rubbish. It's not like City, where I'm totally saying, City are out of the race, because they are. I think Arsenal can solve some of these problems, and they have, and they can go on a big run of winning games, and I think they will at some point this season. But their target is now getting further and further away, and the points per game they have to get anywhere near 90 is getting to a level that they've never won games at consistently to that degree. Yeah. So it's a big ask for them. The gap's getting big, and you can say, I said about Arsenal's start when they had it that they've had tough fixtures, but they're still within touching distance, and that was true. But the fact is they've dropped points in some silly places after that. And then if you do that, it doesn't matter that you had a tough start. You're wasting opportunities to pick up points, and the gap's getting too big. And so, if Liverpool win now, it's 9 points again to Arsenal, and we're already in December. It's starting to get too big for them. So, and the amount of focus their supporters seem to have on Liverpool at the moment in social media, they really need to concentrate on actually winning some games. And they've dropped points in kind of 8 out of 15 games so far. Yeah. That's not title winning form, nowhere near it. So they've got problems, but albeit ones I think they're probably more likely to solve than City, but they're probably already too far behind for that to make a difference.
Yeah, just in case anyone's not clocked the basic maths, that they are dropping points galore away from home, and Arsenal need to go at pretty much prime Pep, prime Klopp team form to get to 90 points. So just keep that in context. So with that in mind, you probably understood why Sky are really trying to push the Chelsea contenders narrative, because obviously they've got to have some story, haven't they? Otherwise the rest just drop away. There's got to be something. So there's two bits, because I want to tackle Chelsea, and I want to talk about the whole Cole Palmer storm that people are discussing. Chelsea, do you see them as title contenders to us?
No, because again, I get why people, they're on a really good run at the moment. They're playing some fabulous football, and I do like watching them. Actually, really are quite good. And Cole Palmer is phenomenal, but they've got issues in defence that I think they're kind of around 10th in the Premier League for expected goals against. And then I totally accept football is played on grass, not on paper. But I've very rarely seen sides ever outrun that kind of record defensively, and XG will always kind of catch up with you. Their defensive record is very, very poor. And I actually watched the highlights back of the Spurs game. I only watched kind of bits of it yesterday, but I watched the highlights on Match of the Day today. And I kind of thought, actually, Chelsea, even though they might have dominated that second half in terms of territory, chances-wise, they don't actually create that much in the game, and Spurs really do. You think of some of the chances that the Spurs threw away. Without the penalties, I think Chelsea would have kind of struggled in that game a little bit, and it was more even than it kind of ended up looking in the end. So, I think Chelsea, unless they solve the issues with the goalkeeper, they solve the issues with the back four, and just defensively, generally how they are, the lack of solidity there, they won't be anywhere near it. But I think they're definitely top four, aren't they? Which is, for them would be a very good season, even discounting the amount of money they've spent. They were a shambles last season. So I still think getting in the top four would be significant for them. But there's no chance with that defensive record. That will catch up to them in some games, and they will lose a few games that will take them out of title contention, I think.
Yeah, people do forget yesterday, if Bissouma and Sarr don't have absolutely brain farts and just do stupid things in the penalty area, it does finish square, despite what everyone will say about Spurs being Spursy and everything like that. And also, like you said, it's just near on impossible to imagine a title-winning team with Robert Sanchez beneath the sticks and the mistakes he's made repeatedly this season. So, yeah, it is hard to see, but we'll never know. We'll see what develops. And the final bit is, and people, I don't think they fully clocked these comments. Maybe they did, but people did jump on Jamie Carragher's comments. And it was clipped on Sky social media to say almost Cole Palmer is the best player in the Premier League. But what Carragher specifically said was Cole Palmer over the last 18 months has been the best player in the Premier League. And to bring it back to a Liverpool theme, completely understandably, people said, well, what about Virgil van Dijk? What about Mo Salah? I mean, all three, I want to say, are brilliant players. Where do you stand on sort of those comments, Cole Palmer being the best in the last 18 months in the Premier League?
I don't think it's massively unfair. I think they're pretty even, aren't they, for assists and goals over that time. I think Salah had a little dip towards the back end of last season after his injury. After the AFCON, I don't think he was quite the same. So I think if you take it as an 18-month period, that is not the most outrageous thing to say. And I think there's a big argument that Salah at this very moment is the best player in the Premier League because of the start of the season he's had. But over the last 18 months, I think it's entirely fair to say it's Cole Palmer. And I saw kind of the kickoff about this, but I really need to tell people to just calm down a little bit. This desire to jump on Jamie Carragher for holding an opinion that is not remotely controversial at all. It's like I say, it's probably close over the last 18 months and you could favour one over the other. He's not there to be cheerleading for Liverpool players. And I know people disagree with him about his comments on Mo Salah. I personally actually didn't. I did think the timing was quite selfish. And if the results hadn't gone the way that they had, then it might have worked. People might perceive those slightly differently. That's not to say Salah is a selfish person or a selfish player or anything like that. I thought the timing of his comments could have been better. Again, Jamie Carragher totally entitled to that opinion. And, people kind of saying in response, oh, well, who cares what Carragher thinks, blah, blah, blah. Well, you care because you're crying about it on social media all the time. I just think people just need to just relax a little bit and not feel that, every comment that Jamie Carragher makes now has to be reacted to and exploding in fury. And I see so many Liverpool fans who say that Arsenal fans are touchy on social media, and yet every time Carragher says anything, they're absolutely up in arms about it. Just relax. People have got opinions. And the ones you can kind of laugh at for me are kind of Gary Neville at the start of the season saying Manchester United's midfield options are better than Liverpool's. That for me is laughable and funny and kind of, oh my God, look at this. But it doesn't make me angry, by the way. It doesn't make me, it's just kind of, look at this. That was really wrong, wasn't it? But the anger and the kind of just the outrage about it, just kind of just, like I say, people just need to relax a little bit. And there are things that people say in football and around football that are wrong and worthy of getting het up about. Some horrible things get said to each other online. Having opinions on football is not worth getting that angry about. And people need to just chill out a bit. And I thought what Carragher said, I thought it's touch and go between Palmer and Mo Salah over the last 18 months. And I think it's entirely fair that if you look at Mo's dip at the back end of last season, that over 18 months you can say that's Cole Palmer's out there, and that's absolutely fine to think that. Either way, Liverpool are top of the league, so not worth getting that kind of het up about for me. Yeah,
if he'd said that it was this season, if he was talking about this season, I would have said talking nonsense. Mo Salah's the best player in the world, and obviously Van Dijk has been sensational, and Cole Palmer's penalty. I'd have brought that into the mix. The thing is, I agree with you to put over the last 18 months, I haven't got all the stats, I haven't got the breakdown, but it is not an outrageous argument at all. You could argue about the dips for Salah and Van Dijk at times, the issues, it's not an outrageous statement. The other thing that I do like actually about these types of things, it's quite clear that they've seen Robertson on American TV. You've seen Salah and Van Dijk afterwards. Even if there isn't the best feeling in the world, shall we say, to Jamie Carragher in that Liverpool changing room, it's firing Mo Salah, isn't it, to prove him wrong. So if he keeps doing it and he keeps firing Mo Salah, who cares? As long as, like you said, we are top of the league, who really cares? And there we go, ladies and gents. That is Media Matters. That was Wider Football. That was Transfer Talk. That was a derby postponement that doesn't suit us too bad. David, I know you've got sort of run off. There is open training. There is a press conference to prepare for. So all it leaves me to say is ever, for the time, the insight, the answers, much appreciated as ever.
Thank you very much.
And ladies and gents, that was another Media Matters for Anfield Index.